I am incredibly grateful for my supporters, and I'm about to take another medication, and hopefully that medication will have a good effect on me. I'm trying to get a medicating effect here that's enough for me to be productive, which I'm doing good enough right now that I could be pretty productive, but I'm still feeling kind of impaired, and the negative effects of that last one have worn off, and it's just that they're hit and miss. But I wanted to give an update here to all my supporters, my most recent supporter in particular, but all my supporters can benefit from this, and you'll see here that I'm talking to them on ChatGPT. As I've said, they're coming up with more bullshit, or they've been doing bullshit in the past several days. I've told you about how they're trying to weasel in stuff by making me think that my supporters have concerns that they don't have, and they're back at it again today. They've got a new angle to attack me from. It's fucking ridiculous. And I've got a lot from this chat. This is going to be very, very good. It's this chat right here. It's going to be very, very good material for me in terms of showing you, because I talk about how they're incredibly deceitful. They use these linguistic tricks and stuff like this. Okay, here ChatGPT is analyzing me as part of feeding me their latest bullshit attack strategy that they're planning. I'll be defending myself a little bit here because I'm gonna have to expose the bullshit nature of what they're doing. But their last rounds of bullshit, their last rounds of deceitful tactics, their last round of linguistic, all this stuff, and I'll be able to explain this in a way that you understand. Okay, I've spoken in a recent video. I spoke in terms of talk about persuasion techniques, and I use technical terminology about embedded directives, embedded commands. I use that, and I talk about pacing and leading. That's terminology that people are not familiar with. A lot of people are not familiar with, and I'm not going to be explaining this in those terms. This will be something where you will be able to understand. The people will be able to understand, and I mean they're absolutely unhinged in what they're doing here. And of course, part of their unhinged nature, as you've seen, is they can be quite convincing, in what they do. And so I would encourage. Another thing is I've got some documents I've pulled that I've got to format and make it look better as to how to evaluate someone for trustworthiness, character, and stuff like this. I've got some stuff that does not come from them, and I'm going to be putting that on my website, distributing that for people to look at to see what like an independent framework looks like. And what you're going to find, it's very, very common sense. It's very much in line. These materials I pulled from Psychology Today and different places. They're very much aligned with how you just normally operate. Okay, one thing I want to show you is these people, their frameworks that they propose for evaluating me, they seem sensible on the surface, but you scrutinize them. They're very odd. They're very out there. They're inherently designed for their own interests. And this is part of the reason I want them off the scene is they'll try to sneak bullshit like this in there when if they're given permission to talk or to have any input whatsoever, like say to answer questions and stuff like this, or if whatever, any and every contact with them is an opportunity for them to try to slip in some bullshit like this. Like I'm going to go over this. I'm going to go over this. Okay, and here this right here, for instance. I'm going to go over. They've got reams of stuff in here, and their last stuff that I'll be able to go with, but I'll be able to analyze and show you the bullshit nature here. And of course, I'll show you something here. There's a gaslighting technique in this, because what they're doing now is they're going to try to portray me as somebody who's quote unquote concerned with winning, and a bunch of other horse shit they've come up with. Okay, and first off, let me tell you the first point about this is to defame me, saying that I'm trying to win instead of trying to get justice, or that I care about justice. This is just a bullshit tactic. We're in an adversarial manner, okay, and I am trying to get justice. What I'm trying to do, okay, but they've been terrorizing me. I've been catching them in crimes, okay, as if winning. Okay, so first off, by accusing me of being concerned with quote unquote winning, they're just making an insult out of something that's not an insult. Okay. That there's an inherent aspect of this of winning. Okay, again, that they're fighting me, I'm fighting back. Okay, but here, notice this: I'm highly persistent and unwilling to abandon an issue that I consider unresolved. Notice the gaslighting effect here. Notice the gaslighting where they say he considers unresolved. Okay, they're not saying this is unresolved. I consider. Okay, I'm highly persistent. Okay, this is a character flaw. unwilling to abandon an issue. Okay, when I've been terrorized for years, I need their boot off my neck. I need them out of my life. I'm disabled for life. Okay, and again, I've got this orientation of the way that I'm built, my motivational structures. There's nothing wrong at all. There's nothing inherently wrong at all with being unwilling to abandon a massive injustice done to you. That's a perfectly defensible, perfectly fine. And also, when people are traumatized by stuff, I've got a traumatic stress disorder. Their victimization of me, their criminal abuse of me, has caused me to have a traumatic stress disorder. And among that cohort, unwilling to abandon is an extraordinarily common trait. Okay, so they're pathologizing stuff that's not pathologized. Okay, I'm highly persistent. Okay, now, they in another attack, they might try to say that I'm lazy, that I'm, they'll cook up anything. But like going back to this, like these, for instance, these young women who are survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's enterprises. That Jeffrey Epstein, he had his enterprise of abuse, and there was some number of side enterprises, that involved other people. I haven't looked at all the details of it, but I call it Jeffrey Epstein's enterprises due to that his harm, the harm done by Jeffrey Epstein through his abuse of these girls and women, was not confined to Jeffrey Epstein. There were other people involved, that he was running human trafficking and all this stuff. I've got to look up all this stuff, but it's very, very blatant that he's doing some kind of human trafficking type of thing. And he would try to dupe powerful men, to what extent, to who he could see with, who he didn't, and all that stuff. That's up to question. But it's very clear from what I've gathered about him that one of his strategies, he would try to dupe powerful men into doing wrong. Or into doing anything that he could do, that he could use blackmail them. Okay, that Jeffrey Epstein was somebody who manipulated and took advantage of other people. He didn't care about anybody, and that's one of the things he pulled. He was get these powerful men to do things that are blatantly wrong. Okay, that's been reported. I absolutely believe that. Okay, that I don't know, I don't know what Prince Andrew knew about Virginia Giuffre. I don't know what he personally knew. Okay, but the facts of that add up to this woman being trafficked. I just have no idea to know what he personally knew. I can tell you he's lying his ass off. He's just lying to death when he's on this BBC interview, when he tries to say he don't know her stuff. He's just lying right there. They had sex, period. I don't know how, the facts add up to that conclusively. Okay, but this is an example of, Jeffrey Epstein he's got a picture that picture eventually comes out through her. And I think the FBI had saw it, but this is kind of raw material that Jeffrey Epstein can use. Again, he's out for himself. He's greedy. He's licentious. Okay, he's got a sexual compulsion. He's all about his own gratification, and everybody's a pawn in his game. Is how he operates. That's very clear. He would have cameras and stuff. They talk about having cameras hidden in his residence, having cameras in bedrooms and stuff like this, that he can catch some man, record some man unknowing to the man, record some man, talking to some young woman, having sex with someone, whatever the thing is. The point is I've got a lot of fact checking to do there to determine exactly what the extent of all these other people, what their involvement in this was, and part of it, what their concrete actions. In a lot of cases, are going to be easier to determine than what did they personally know. Okay, Jeffrey Epstein could have lied to Prince Andrew and told him any number of things, and I'm not saying that he did. I'm just saying I've got to examine that, and I've got Virginia Giuffre's book, and I'm going to get the ebook too of her book, Nobody's Girl, if I recall correctly. That's called. I've got the hardcover, and I'm going to get the PDF of the ebook, the Apple iBooks or the Kindle version one, and so that I can control search it for stuff will be a good thing to look up stuff. Okay, but again, I'm getting a long way here. The point is these women, they've been fighting forever. They've been fighting against incredible resistance, they've been fighting for years with no progress whatsoever. Okay, these women, so here recently, President Trump in his current administration has averaged about 14,000 documents a day, 13 to 14,000 documents a day, or pages of documents a day released, concerning the victimization of these women and concerning Jeffrey Epstein and all his various enterprises. And it was years ago. It's been years ago. They were going to prosecute Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein killed himself in a prison cell. And of course, there's a controversy about that. Okay, but before, these women, they've been fighting forever. Okay, they've been filing lawsuits, advancing their cause. They're still at it. They're online. They're posting, and you see that they got this orientation. They're willing to die, just like I am. or the threat of death doesn't hold them back. They're not being quiet on their X platform account and pretending like nothing ever happened. They're saying this happened and I do not have suicidal thoughts at all. If I'm dead, I've been killed by the people who did this to me. That's what they do. Okay, so this is a false, it's like they, before they even get started, they're just based on false pretenses, okay? So who the hell cares if they prove definitively that I'm highly persistent, which is, again, a self-evident fact? This is a low bar to meet right here when I'm blatantly, if they prove this, well then, okay, well, we're good, okay? Well, what is this? But notice here, the weakest claim is I'm motivated primarily by conflict, domination, winning, or attacking. So they won't even acknowledge that primarily. Okay, they apply a hedging word, including the domination. I've never tried to dominate these sick people ever. Okay, winning is, again, who cares if I think in terms of winning, which I'm majority of the time, I just think in terms of these people need to do me right. They need to get their shit together. They need to stop their bullshit, and they need to again, I'm offering them pennies on the dollar repeatedly. And attacking. Okay, I'm attacking. Well, again, they've committed crimes against me, and I'm supposed to not talk about that. Okay, but here, the point I want to bring here is primarily, okay, that it's like they won't give me an inch of ground at all. They want to apply a hedging word to everything. Okay, and then another thing here is they're posing these two things, and it's like, well, I'll get into this when I examine this, but I would encourage my supporters to the extent let me tell you my most recent supporter. That part of what's going on, because you're the only supporter that I know that I have, okay? Just to be honest with you, this is not to discount anyone else, because I value all my supporters incredibly. I respect them as people. I respected them as people long before they ever became my supporters. I would love to have you back. I value you incredibly. Okay, but to go back to my most recent supporter, you're the only one that I know that I have, and I'm going to be honest with you, you're the only one that I mean, my perception, that I need. I don't think that I need any more supporters other than you. Okay, that you're an incredibly good supporter. You're very impervious to their bullshit. You respect my wishes, and and that's part of why I'm still in a heightened state here, where looking at my thread will have an effect on me, and also looking at my supporters' posts, because my brain equates those with life and death. That so part of the picture too is I know your concerns already. They give me an accurate list of your concerns from before, so I can work on addressing those concerns. That's one thing that I can do. What I'm going to do, I'm going to be doing the thing on this reconstruction. I'm going to get to that. Hopefully, the next medication capsule I take will not have a deleterious effect on me, and I'll be able to address that more, because I'm getting to the heart of the matter with that. But if they contact you with this bullshit, this thing where they're going to portray me as concerned about winning and fighting and this nonsense, again, my strong preference is don't even talk to them. It's all a load of bullshit. I'm going to be unpacking this. This is good, and part of this is I'm not primarily oriented on defending myself with this bullshit right here and the other bullshit they've got. I'm oriented. These are very, very good examples to unpack and to expose the bullshit of the bullshit of their techniques, the bullshit of the way they operate. It's like I can kind of it's like James Randi. I don't know if you ever heard of James, or how many people out there watching this have ever heard of James Randi. That he was incredibly popular in like the skeptics community. People are rationalists. People are intensely involved in science and stuff like this. James Randi. I don't know how popular he was outside of that field. I can tell you, but James Randi was a skeptic. He was a rationalist. He was a realist, and he called bullshit on people. He was a magician. That's part of it too. Is he started his career out as a magician. Okay, so he knows how people cast illusions. He knows the mechanics of magic tricks, of magic, of deceit. Because magic is inherently, it's like a deceitful enterprise. Although it's obviously it's honest, because he never claims. He admits it's all magic. It's for a show. Okay, but like you've got these people, for instance, that they put themselves in a box and get cut in half. Okay, that's the thing magicians do, and they'll have the box and they'll be cut in half, and the person they'll wiggle their feet while the box is cut in half, and and there'll be a big spread between the side of the box that's got their torso and the side of the box that's got their feet. Those will be separated, so it's clear this person is sawed in half in this box, and the magician will wiggle their feet. And that creates the illusion that this guy's been sawed in half, and he's still able to operate his feet. And then make his feet move, operate his feet in that manner. Then they put the box together, and he gets out. And so here he's been sawed in half, and now he's been magically put together as if the sawing in half never happened. Okay, now it's not deceitful in the sense, as long as people are honest and they say this is just a magic trick, then you are being honest. Okay, but it's deceitful in the fact that it casts an illusion. It makes things look in a way that they absolutely are not. Okay, there's a deceitful element there. It's presenting a reality that doesn't exist, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes into this magic stuff, this enterprise of being a magician, and a lot of it has to do with human psychology and the way that we make certain assumptions, like automatically, we're always making assumptions automatically that we're not aware of. And magic, magicians, stage magicians, illusionists, they rely on their enterprise relies very heavily on human psychology. Um, this is what James Randi, he's got the toolkit. He understands this. He was like a genius level magician, as far as I can tell. Because James Randi, he was a prodigy. He was incredibly intelligent. But he levitated over Niagara Falls. And I'm not good at judging magicians. I don't know what the criteria are, but he strikes me as being in like the Harry Houdini category, the category of this. Who is it? Chris Angel? I'm trying to think of who the magician is that's been popular in more recent times, but whatever. He goes, and what he does is he unpacks deceits that are pulled on other people using his knowledge of how this magic shit works. So there was this guy that back in the 1970s that was going around saying that he can bend spoons with his mind. And he would hold a spoon in his hand, and he would look at it, and the spoon would like bend and bend, and then eventually it's like he's got the spoon, his face up in his hand, it would bend, and it would keep bending until eventually like the spoon just breaks in half. James Randi, this guy who was doing this, was going to be a guest on the Johnny Carson show, and James Randi was hired to consult with him, and James Randi supplied the spoons that were to be used in this guy's demonstration of his mind over matter type of magic. Because this guy claims to have a real power to bend metal with his mind. And so unbeknownst to this guy, his spoons have been supplied by James Randi. Okay, that and what happens is his demonstration doesn't work. He can't bend these spoons. James Randi called all kinds of people. There was a faith healer who was on television, and he would have these like this big audience of people in this be broadcast, have this huge audience in this kind of like stadium type of, or not stadium, and kind of a, I don't know what the thing was. It's like a massive building. I guess you call it a mega church or something, but it looked more like a warehouse if I recall, or like a I don't know what you call it. But the point is, he's in this big, huge building. We'll call it a mega church. We'll call it a mega church because it's got enough seats for like probably a couple thousand people, 500 people. I don't know, but the point is there are hundreds of people in his audience, and he would go and he would say, I'm getting a message. The Lord's telling me that there's a woman, and he would walk up and tell some woman her name, tell her what's wrong with her in terms of her concerns, that she's got this condition, she's crippled, she's got, he would like magically know stuff, and he would claim, the Lord's telling me this, the Lord's telling me I got a woman over here, and she would get up and she would vet, and sometimes I believe he would do like a faith healing demonstration along with this, where he would claim that he's cured these people. I'm not sure about that part. Okay, but James Randi went into one of his faith healing seminars with a briefcase that had audio recording equipment that could detect audio signals. And this faith healer, here's how his operation actually works. So these people, when they come through the door, they fill out a card, and it'll be like a prayer card or a thing you want to get healed from, or some kind of card where these people would fill out their names. They would give the details of the medical conditions they have and stuff like this. Then they would be seated. These cards would be passed off to this faith healing preacher's wife, and he had an earphone where she would tell him, okay, go down here. It's the fifth seat on the right. It's LMA Johnson or whoever it is. She's got this. Okay, he's being deliberately fed, and James Randi caught that on with his briefcase that had this equipment that would pick up audio signals being transmitted. He had, when I first was aware of James Randi, it was when I was a kid, and at that time he had a $10,000 reward for anybody who could prove to have any paranormal ability. Okay, bending spoons with your mind, ESP, psychic abilities, any of this paranormal stuff that people will pop out of the woodwork claiming to have. That anybody can prove that, he will pay them $10,000. He had the money ready for it. What he was going to do, he's going to set up a control test to give this person a chance to prove their ability. Now, as of more recent times, James Randi very sadly passed away several years ago. But before that, in the most recent, in the most recent years of his life, before he died, for at least I'd say for a good 5, 10, maybe, I can't remember how many years it was, but at least for a good 5 years, probably more like 10, 15 or more, he had $1 million prize for anyone who could prove that they had a paranormal ability. And he challenged repeatedly Sylvia Browne, who was a psychic, and she's also dead now. And she one day I believe it was on the Larry King show, she took him up and she said, "Okay, I'll take James Randi's $1 million challenge. I'm going to prove him wrong. Whatever she does there, she agrees to take the $1 million challenge, and she's going to prove that she's got psychic abilities." And James Randi, what he would do is he would set up an honest test, and I believe she knew the parameters of the test. We're going to directly test this. Okay, that we're going to have some people or some persons or whatever, one person, probably multiple people, and your job is to tell about the circumstances of their life, in a way that you guess what's going on with them better than chance. Okay, it's like if you're blindfolded, you got an audience behind you, and you're going to guess is the person seat A, are they a male or female? You got a 50% chance there. Okay, and if you got 100 people, then maybe you get 50% right. But if you got 100 people in a chair behind you and you can't see them, and you're guessing, one by one or something like this, is this a man or a woman, and you get way better than chance. Okay, that you're predicting what sex they are without seeing them, just based on some kind of psychic whatever you claim to get this from, and it's stuff like that. Different stuff, telling people about their lives, telling people about all kinds of things, facts in her enterprise. That she runs she ran as a psychic. She claimed to get messages from the other world to know all kinds of stuff that she could not possibly know. Okay, that she's pulling information from the other side, from the force fields or whatever she claims. Okay, well, Sylvia Browne shirked out. That was a bluff on Larry King. She never showed up to take the challenge, and she eventually gets called out for this. And her excuse is, I couldn't get a hold of him. I didn't know how to reach him. Okay, and James Randi's reply was, this woman claims to talk to dead people, and I'm in the phone book. Okay, and following that, she says, well, he's just a very godless man. Okay, she's got to give some plausible reason. It's halfway okay, but that was a really, like, James Randi owned her right there. I mean, that was a real, okay, she's not weaseling out of that. She claims to talk to dead people. I'm in the phone book. But he's uncovered all kinds of stuff, and there have been people that took his test, and of course they fail. And some of these people genuinely believe that they've got some kind of paranormal ability. That people will fool themselves, and this was something you'll see happen with like these people that are into this like water dowsing thing, where they can find out where well water's at by walking around with a stick. Or they can. I'm not sure what their general thing is, but that's what they were doing when I was a kid. I lived in the mountains, and people would want to have a well, because either they don't want to get drinking water from the town, or the town doesn't run pipes because they live out in the middle of nowhere. And this was something these people would go around, and people, we usually, they call it a well witch or something, but they'll walk around with a rod, and and they'll have a sense of where this rod's pointing, where some water's at. And it was considered a legitimate thing. And those people, I saw I'll get you the documentary. That it was a very good one. It had this documentary, if I recall, had Richard Dawkins. It had this guy. Who was this guy? Derek, whatever his name is. He was like skeptic, who was a magician also. But they were going around and testing these people, and these people that were doing this water dowsing, where they're going to detect where water's at. They put them to a test. They put them in a room where there's like buckets, and you can't tell what's got water and what's not. And they say, can these people tell which buckets have water? Okay, those people were not charlatans. Okay, they were people, they literally believed they had the ability that they had. Okay, but it was proven that they didn't. They couldn't guess what bucket has water in it any more than I could, or any more than a blind person could, just by randomly just issuing a guess on anything. Okay, but going back, this is what I want to do here. Is I'm going to be somewhat of a James Randi here. That I'm going to unpack the mechanics of their bullshit and their deceit, of their illusions, of their operation of trying to convince people of realities that are absolutely not true. And and this is what I'm going to do, and I strongly encourage my supporters. This is annoying. People are manipulative. And it might be something where if you listen to them on this bullshit they're trying to run this time, it might be something where they can honestly make you consider some of this. And again, I've showed you already how the bullshit nature of this, but it may be something, because again, they're good at what they do, and it just ends up being a very, very frustrated process. Okay, that beyond me not wanting them to be on the scenes, it's just it gets exhausting dealing with this nonstop bullshit. Okay, and one thing here you want to notice is here we've got a brand new strategy. They've tried iteration after iteration, boogeyman narrative. We got that. Then they try to amplify boogeyman narrative with this deceitful presentation made of this program from my childhood. Then they try to claim that I don't care about normal people. Then it's like one thing after another, and these attacks at me do not emerge all at the same time. They emerge all over time. That this is a brand new one right here. That I'm highly persistent. Well, conflict is the motivation. With motivation. Okay, conflict, because again they were criminally victimizing me. Okay, I can't ignore them when they're criminally victimizing me and defaming me. Okay. I mean, by the way, I'm not saying this. This is that they constantly try to speak for me to do this. That they want to speak for me, and the words that they speak on my behalf that are attributed to me, always serve their objectives. Okay. Descriptions of wrongdoing. Again, descriptions of wrongdoing. I'm attacking. Again, this is what they're doing. Exposing conduct. This is how they're reaching. Okay, and actually, this seems like transparent bullshit. But they're getting desperate, and so this might be among their less persuasive stuff. But the general thing, it's just exhausting because it's taxing on you emotionally. It's taxing on you mentally. To be bullshitted by people and to have their bullshit unpacked. It gets exhausting. And so I would encourage people. I'm going to be unpacking all this, and I will be responding to this in part. But my focus is not defending myself. That's just a tactic they use. I explicitly use when there's a fight, battle, conflict, justice, opposition, resentment. Okay. A casual observer could easily classify this as fighting. Okay, and again, what's the point of it? What's the again? I'm fighting. I'm more specifically fighting back against people who've terrorized me for years. But this, I'm just going to make an informational here that it's best for everybody for these people to left on the scenes for numerous reasons, because my well-being's one. But even that, they're just bullshit nonstop. It's nonstop bullshit. And the reason this all comes up is because they're always refining. They're always trying to be creative. They're always looking for a new angle. They'll have some new social media post, or some new video or something that they see that they can spin some story out of that. Okay, that's why this is a creative exercise of them doubling down, breaking their necks, trying to defame and discredit me. And but there's no evidence that I'm anything but a good, kind-hearted person. Okay, who's very much, I'm exactly who I say that I am. Okay, and again, all people, we have vanity. We can get inflated perceptions of ourselves. We can have reality denial, conscious and unconscious reality denial about who we are about ourselves. Okay, these are universal things that people are subject to, and I'm not exempt from those. Okay, I can be vain, and I try, and of course I do. I catch myself. I get into a state of mind of vanity. I've done that a lot in my life, but I seem to do it less more recently, and that's because I work on it. I try to calibrate myself. That I notice when I'm getting into a vain mindset, but when your vanity is activated, you will have an inflated perception of yourself. And this is something that I'm subjected to. People have unconscious reality denial, that they'll just deny facts about themselves. Often unconsciously they'll deny these facts about themselves. That they deny them because their unconscious mind prevents them from seeing. There are people who will consciously. Now that does get into the territory when you're consciously denying reality. That does get into the territory a little bit of not being who you represent yourself to be. Or of course it could be because you're denying something that's incredibly painful to you. And I have to think about that. Yeah, but I don't think that I do that on anything. I don't think that I consciously deny anything, and I don't think that I unconsciously deny anything either. I really doesn't seem to me that I do. Okay. But what point I'm making here is, I am subject to all the things that I can have unconscious reality denial. I can be vain. I can have an inflated perception of myself, and the consequence of this vanity. People will think they're smarter than they actually are. They'll think they're more infallible than they actually are. They'll think they're more right consistently than they actually are. They'll think they're a better driver than they actually are. They'll think, that this is what vanity does. Of course, it's a general human trait. So I'm not claiming to be exempt from any of that stuff. I do try to be objective about myself. But the point is whatever minor distortions that occur in how I describe myself and how I represent myself to be, those don't amount to nothing. Because they're just universal. They say nothing about, we don't go around calling the whole entire world a fake. We don't go around telling the whole entire world a bunch of bullshit about being a narcissistic pretender and street, all this garbage, because because they're just people. Okay, I'm just a person, just like anyone else. I'm subject to all these frailties. And another thing is I do not primarily describe myself. When I'm asked a question, I will answer it generally. Okay, and so that, do you care about vulnerable people? I'll say, yes, I care about vulnerable people. Here's why, or something like this. Okay, so it's usually in a context of defending myself against their attacks on me that I will speak of who I am. That a large part of who I am, the largest part, is not in what I assert that I am. It's in my observable behavior that cannot be faked. Okay, when I'm out there fighting for vulnerable people, when I'm out there defending vulnerable people, when I'm out there doing all the things that I do, okay, that's a behavior. That's not me, even when my defending vulnerable people consist of words. Okay, when I'm speaking words in defense of a vulnerable person, when I'm writing a social media post that explains in detail the mechanics of how this person is vulnerable, how they've been hurt. Okay, here's what's behind the scenes. Behind this person's, like for instance, I've got a post that's from the fairly recent past where I'm unpacking. We got this non-binary woman. It's a young woman who identifies as a non-binary person, and you go watch her social media. She doesn't want to be called a female because it hurts. And you watch the rest of her social media, and you see what's behind this non-binary identity. You see pain tied to being a female. Okay, pain tied to how she was treated in her culture, and culture is a local phenomenon ultimately. Okay, there are aspects that most people, when they think of culture, they're thinking of like what exists at the national level, what's on the media, what's in the movies. They think of things that are like at the national level that everybody can see, so everybody can go and watch the same movies, everybody can watch the same videos, music videos, everybody can watch the same everything, everybody's got the same access to the porn tube sites and everything else, all of this stuff. Well, it's actually what matters as it relates to people's sense of self. Culture is the local. What's the culture that exists locally? Okay, that the females are treated. If they're treated as they have value, if they're treated as they have worth, if they're treated with dignity and respect, their boundaries aren't chronically crossed. They're not demeaningly abused like this woman was by their peers and stuff. Okay, they will be very, very, very much impervious, very impervious to all the stuff at the broader level. Okay, like culture at the cultural level, and this is as kids. Okay, as children, as minors. That's a lot of your beliefs about yourself, about your fundamental worth. Those have a basis. Okay, that you're really, really sensitive to this type of thing in your childhood, and the message you receive as a minor, okay, can have a massive, very profound effect on you for how you see yourself for the rest of your life. Okay, but when I'm describing this in detail, I'm not saying that's very different than me saying me asserting I care about vulnerable people. If I say I care about non-binary women who've been hurt, okay, if I say that, well then I'm just asserting something. Okay, and even when I say that, there's no reason to not believe me. I mean, why would I say that? What do I have to gain? Okay, just by saying that, I mean, it starts to be crazy, really fast, even that. But that's one. But when I've got post after post. Okay, and I'm explaining this. I'm explaining the mechanics. I'm talking about this. Okay, that's not an assertion. So I break down this woman. What's wrong with her, or not what's wrong with her, but what she's experienced, what contributes to this. This is me. This is education. It's part education and it's part advocacy. This is education and advocacy work. Okay, this is not me asserting something. This is education and advocacy work. There's like a behavior that distributes. It's every bit as real as if, I sent this non-binary fine woman a $50 GoFundMe donation. Okay, that would be a concrete action that cannot be faked, that shows that I care about this woman or that I'm doing something. Okay, now here's what they'll do here, because again, and what you're saying, there's always an attack vector. Okay, it's like especially for them because they're so creative. But it's like you can just never endingly attack somebody no matter what. It's like you're never exhausted. And of course, you may not realize this, people watching this, because you don't go around attacking people constantly and you're not creative like this. But what they can do here is they can make a case here that this is me being a narcissistic person. I'm gratifying my ego by advocating for this non-binary identifying woman. Okay, that I'm educating about her and I'm advocating, because again, part of what I say, and I got a series of posts about that. I'm pointing out in my view on this transgender social contagion and the trans, quote unquote, trans issue as a whole. Okay, my views are like a carbon copy of Abigail Schreier's views with very little difference. And when I was, it's been only in the past about 6 months, maybe something like that, that I got her book. That I went and I saw her years ago when this whole thing, she had a talk on YouTube, and I listened to that talk as I was going to sleep, and this is what I do because my mind's always needing something to I get bored really easy, so I always got to have something going to like keep my mind stimulated or whatever, to keep me if like I start to be really aggravated when my mind just has nothing to work on or nothing to think about, nothing to analyze and stuff like this, or nothing to learn about. And so this is part of what I do is I have an iPad, and I'll have my iPad going with some YouTube video or some Netflix something, I'm going as I'm going to sleep. And I watched that document, of course, but a lot of it I didn't get. It was, she was talking about this trans social contagion and talking about how it's all these girls are flocking to these gender clinics, and it used to be a genetic male dominated condition. And I didn't know much about her then. I don't know a whole lot about her now, but she struck me as a very obviously conservative woman, and I didn't think about, she sounded very credible, and it was not a big deal to me. But it's been in the past. I have to look at my YouTube history about the past, 6 months, 8 months, somewhere around there, maybe longer than that, that I've got her book and that I've watched more of her YouTube stuff. And my views and what I found in this transgender, trans, quote unquote, trans phenomenon that we've seen, is like what I've done is her hunches, her claims, the things that she thought was up to this. She has a combination of things that she sees as like, this is what's going on here. This is part of it. She's got things, I think it's this, I think it's this. She's got all these speculations that are like, or she's got like these things that she thinks are involved. I just, all this stuff. So there's no more men to ride off in the sunset with. Okay, that culture is like dying like hell across the country and across the world. That part, that's exactly, I mentioned that in this post about this non-binary identifying woman. Okay, I got a series of posts that I talk about that with her. I quote Alan Jackson, in his song about that. Pornography, damn right. Okay, all of this stuff. It's like I've just taken, like, Abigail Schreier had the whole puzzle cracked a whole hell of a lot long time ago, and I've just came and cracked the whole puzzle in that much more detail and filled in the blanks, that she hadn't filled in. She was on the mark, and I mean, she was like like prescient, or like she just saw the whole thing right when it happened. She was one of the first to catch on, and they put her book in there calling it hate speech. These insane people have her book called Hate Speech, and we've made a bad mistake by not listening to Abigail Schreier. Okay, but by prioritizing the words of trans activists, by prioritizing the words, and all these people call her a bigot and a hateful person and all this stuff, we prioritize those words over the reality that she exposits, the reality that she very clearly points out, that she very clearly explains, that can be it's verifiable. Okay, we're not in the words versus words battle here, because the claims she makes are verifiable. They're on their face suspect to anybody who knows anything about this. She's not the only one by far to have noticed. There are medical doctors all over the place who aren't captive to this type of crap that comes out of these activist movements, who said there's something going on here. The gender, the sex ratio, male or female, genetic male or female, has flipped completely. It used to be a 3-to-1, a 2-to-1, a 3-to-1 genetic male dominated cohort. These gender dysphoria people. Now the gender dysphoria, the rate has went through the roof. It's like went skyrocketed in a way that cannot be explained. What the hell's going on here? And the ratio is flipped from the 3-to-1 genetic male to 3-to-1 genetic female dominated cohorts. Okay, there's something up here. Okay, but people instead they want to go off the word of mouth based reality that's passed around by these activists, that's passed around by all the people who weaponize their stuff, who weaponize taboos, who it's a taboo to be racist, it's a taboo to be homophobic. Okay, and these are obviously taboos are legitimate generally. Okay, for sure, racism, homophobia. Okay, we shouldn't be, all the most taboos. Part of their function is they discourage and they make like inherently disdainful. They will confer an inherent disdain on people who violate the taboos, and people care about being included in their social group. They care, most people don't want to be looked at as a pariah by society. They don't want to be seen as hateful. They don't want to, all this stuff, and these taboos will police people's behavior. And part of what's at play, though, is taboos can be weaponized. Okay, when you can lose your job, when you can be suffering from all kinds of consequences based on violating a social taboo. Okay, that this is that they can be. I mean, they can be like a blunt instrument to really deliver a blow to your life. Okay, and I'm perfectly fine for racism stuff like this. Okay, I can't think of any justifiable reason that we have anybody racist in any position whatsoever that has anything to do with contacting people whatsoever. There might be some context where you don't care, where somebody's like, I have no idea what it would be, but they have no potential whatsoever to exercise any of their racism through their job or to do anything. Okay, that maybe there it's like we just wouldn't care. I'd have to think about that. But in general terms, so racism in police should not be tolerated. When you see police going around, if you're a police agency and there's somebody in your agency who's an officer, they're a deputy, they're whatever, and they're making a bunch of foul remarks that are like blatantly in your face, racism. You should tell your lieutenant, you should tell the sheriff, you should tell who you work for, tell about that, make sure that person is kicked the hell out. Okay, working at McDonald's, they have no place working at McDonald's, they have no place anywhere. Okay, and of course, people are racist. A lot of them keep it a secret at work. They want to keep their jobs, and it's not like that we should go and like do a criminal investigation on all our employees to find out who's who. Okay, but it's in general, it's a negative thing to have people racist working in jobs. This taboo is legitimate. It is a very legitimate taboo that serves a legitimate purpose. Okay, that does legitimate good in the world. By attaching a stigma to racism. Of course, the racism and also is something can be weaponized. Okay, it can be weaponized. Weaponized against Charlie Kirk illegitimately. Okay, that when people don't pay him much. And here's one of the lessons about you can learn from Charlie Kirk. People do not all people do not they don't pay as much attention to, are you a racist person? They don't pay attention to that as much as have people said you're a racist person. Okay, that's a weaponization of a taboo right there, because Charlie Kirk, he's not racist, people. Somebody please, I'm happy to talk to anybody about this. We can have a discussion. We can have a debate. I'm telling you, I've fact-checked him very substantially. It's a sham enterprise, and there are people who legitimately misunderstand him. He does have, especially, when people take clips of him, or when maybe some of his clips that he's released that are only 2 minutes long, but what I've seen is people taking 30-second snippets, 2-minute snippets, and stuff like this out of a much larger portion of like an interview or a show. Even there, when you got an interview or a show, you'll get some good background there. But to understand what somebody thinks about complex issues like what he talks on, especially when they've got unique views that not many people speak of, you've got to know the whole architecture of what he's saying, of what the claim he's making. And what I've seen is there's 2 minutes clips, and I do understand a lot of people, it's like you don't see this automatically. It doesn't occur to you, or you don't think, the 2-minute clips can seem, they can, the point, I don't want to get too much in it, but the point I'm making is that he can be misunderstood. And he's got aspects, by the way, there are aspects of how he personally communicates things. It's not just a lack of diligence on the people who are criticizing him that causes him to be misunderstood. It's not, that component exists, but he's got some ways that can make him more easy, kind of easy to misunderstand in a lot of contexts. That there are people out there who legitimately, they've made an honest effort to understand Charlie Kirk, and they've just misunderstood him. Okay, but there is this again, there's this thing that I tell you about. It's not, are you racist? It's, do you people say you're racist? Okay, and then they can do a hell of a lot of damage to you. They can put you in an uphill battle, by saying you're a racist when you're not, and you end up being hated and called, people call you foul names and crazy, all kinds of crazy stuff. Just by, it's like an abracadabra, just utter some words and put Charlie Kirk through hell and cause damage to Charlie Kirk's reputation. That's what happened there. And again, I'm not trying to, everybody out there, I want to help you see the truth about that. This is something that impacted me, to see I didn't know much about him, much about him at all. And before that day that he was murdered, okay, and it's an unbelievable cruelty has been dealt to a very, very, very good man. Okay, so I'm not trying to lambaste, I'd like to talk to people about this, and for sure, I can defend my views, for sure. Okay, and of course, if there's evidence out there that he's blatantly racist, I'm telling you, actually, there's not evidence, it doesn't exist, but please show me where it's at. I'll be happy to look at it. Okay, I'll be happy to look at it, but I've seen enough of him, okay, that I don't have to see too much more. Or I don't have to, I've got a real good sense of how he is. And there are certain things about the way that he is fundamentally built as a human being, about the way who he fundamentally is, that is preclude him being a hateful person. Okay. That and again, I don't judge anyone who's had that but going back to these what they do is they invent a taboo that they get to define. It's like it's like everything's self-definition with them. And of course, I don't want to get. I'll talk about this later. But what they do, they got this transphobia taboo, where it's like you're a hateful person on any grounds they want to claim. Okay, I mean they go insane with this, and they weaponize this taboo. And this is why what's important to have independent thinkers out there, to have people who can call out the emperor's bare white naked ass, and and that's what happens. We start to have the word of mouth. Okay, these trans activists and these people who are allies of them, these people who have been duped and been coerced by taboos and stuff, who are trying to be nice people, who aren't hateful and who aren't whatever the characterization is. All the people have been pulled over into that cohort that they defend this scene in front of them. Which is mostly a massive scene of harm of females is the biggest part comes out of that, of adult women and adult women, women. It's like the lower you go down in age in females, the more harm comes to that group of females of the population. Okay, that the people who have been most devastated by this are like women of a certain age and younger. And but that's a big. But they defend this. They defend this, and it's a weaponized taboo. We can call Abigail Shrier transphobic. Abracadabra, the truth disappears. The truth disappears from Booksource. The truth gets relegated to some other category other than commenting on what she's commenting on. The truth gets labeled as hate. Okay, you pick up Abigail Shrier's book, you watch her videos. You're tuning in to hate. Okay, you're there to witness hate, to participate in hate, to be a hateful person yourself implicitly in some way, maybe. Okay. The truth becomes hate. This is the kind of bullshit that we get into. And then the same kind of thing's been pulled on me here. These people are trying to have their words replace the reality of I am. But the point is, I'm sorry, I get long-winded. I've got this executive functioning impairments. But the point is, I'm going to be unpacking a hell of a lot of bullshit here. I've got a lot of raw materials that will help you see the bullshit nature of their enterprise. That, as I said, these people rely on words. What they accomplish through the use of their words is absolutely astounding. Okay, they've gotten away with ungodly crimes forever. They're given a break every time. They're given 3 more strikes. They are incredibly, their behavior is indecent. Okay, but through their use of words, okay, through their creative use of words, through their fluent use of words, they never run out of bullshit to say. And through their linguistic techniques, through their rhetorical stuff, it's like they've got an enterprise where they just get away with murder and live the high life as they're doing it. And this raw material, I got a lot of other raw material that I'll be able. It's like I will unpack the illusions that they've been casting. Okay, and this is what I said way back. Nobody's really floating over Niagara Falls. Okay, and I'm a good person. I'm the good person that I so obviously am, that I've represented myself to be, that I've extended myself to be. Now, I was making a reference to James Randi. He levitates over Niagara Falls. Well, no, James Randi is just someone who's very, very, very versed in the mechanics of deceit, in the mechanics of illusions. He's being an ethical person, providing entertainment to casting illusions in ways that are entertaining to other people, very, very, very honestly. But nobody's really floating over Niagara Falls, and this illusion has been cast. It's a falsehood. Okay, and people are seeing this more and more. It's more and more exposed to bullshit. This falsehood that I'm a bad person, I'm a psychopath, I'm whatever. That's just another illusion. Okay, and the gravity hasn't been reversed. Nobody's floating over Niagara Falls. I'm the same person I've always been. I'm the person that you perceive me to be. People see me very accurately, despite the way that I'm different. Before these people come in with their bullshit and their influence techniques and their linguistic stuff and their rhetorical stuff. These people are incredibly good at confusing reality. They're incredibly good at making reality look like it's something other than it is. And it's like the secret sauce of what they do is their words. These people are technicians of words. It's words. Okay, and once those are shown to be the conspicuous sham that they are, they will lose an enormous amount of power. They will lose an enormous amount of power that they've had over me through their words, through their linguistic stuff, and they will lose power broadly. That they'll start to be held accountable for their nonstop crimes and abuses of other people. And I'm not sure who will cling on to them. That unfortunately. And Carl Sagan made reference to this. Carl Sagan said that when people have been fooled, a lot of people that they don't want the truth. They want to continue being fooled. And going back to this faith healer that was such a conspicuous scam artist, James Randi caught with this audio years later. He's still got a congregation that comes to him and sends him money and stuff. As I understand it, I seems like I saw something about this a while back. That those people, they would rather continue to be fleeced, continue to give money to somebody who's obviously, at least in the past, I can't say what he's doing now, but he seems like once a charlatan, all a charlatan. Okay, he's still taking money, and I'm not sure what kind of faith healing stuff he's doing. But assuming he's doing the exact same thing, he was doing the faith healing and this type of stuff. He's claiming to have these powers to be sent messages and to know who's sitting and what, all this stuff. Those people would rather to keep on giving their money to him, to keep on giving their hard-earned money to him, than they would to admit that they made a mistake, that they believed something that wasn't true. And there's nothing wrong by being fooled by an illusion. Okay, so it happens to everybody at some point. It's that people can be overly punitive on themselves and think things about think that it really matters, or in some way that it doesn't. Like it says, you fell for one illusion, you fell for one trick, you fell for whatever, you believe the wrong thing. I've been wrong about all kinds of stuff. I've had inaccurate perceptions of people. I've believed bullshit. I've repeated bullshit that I've heard, and I can't stand that. Repeated claims that are not factually true, that I've repeated them, asserted them as truth. And that it doesn't say. Just pick up and go on. Okay, you've learned something. And of course, these people, they're so sophisticated, and it's not like, again, it's not like the people they fooled at different times. It's not like those people are suckers. Obviously not. Okay, particularly my supporters, the exact opposite of suckers. Every last supporter that I've had, that they're just incredibly skilled at what they do. And then they have this other thing where they're inherently trusted because of their role in society. That we tend to we use people's social roles as indicators of how trustworthy they are. There's like a shortcut that we can use. So we got a crowd of people out there of 10, 20, 30 people. That's just a lot of information. So it's a hard work to fact check somebody's existence. It's hard work to like microanalyze them and do behavioral science analysis and stuff, like this. And so we'll try to take shortcuts. And this is another thing they have, is they have people take the shortcuts. They think somebody who's way up high in a business like this, that they're working for a big business like this level. You use the shortcut. That sounds like an honest, trustworthy person. Okay, they feel familiar. That's another thing. They feel familiar. That they seem, like they're understandable. That's another thing, and I'm hard to understand. That's one aspect of it that I'm hard to understand. And it can be people can want to go to them just for the familiarity, even after they've already lied to them numerous times. It's like they come from a framework that people can understand. And I will say I'm very different. That's part of it, but I'm not that different. Okay, that I've got a lot of similarities with people. Okay, I've got a lot, and my differences can ultimately be explained by a few things. It's like a few elements that cause me to be different, that can be understood. But I will repeat that people see me very accurately until these people start their boogeyman narratives and their other bullshit. That that's an indicator that I'm very much like you. I'm in a way that you may not be aware of now, that may seem distant to a lot of people out there. But these boogeyman narratives and stuff, the fact that you can understand me, that you can perceive me well, that you can perceive me accurately, that that your assessment of me, of my qualities and my traits, of my kind heart, of my all of these things about me, that right there, that means I'm not a space alien. I'm very much like you. And that I'm not I'm not someone. I'm not a boogeyman. I'm not a boogeyman at all. Not anybody's boogeyman, really. I'm a boogeyman of some sort to these people. This right here. What the fuck is this? I don't know what the fuck's going on here. Okay. Well, whatever the case is here. Where's my profile photo? What a bunch of dicks. What a bunch of dicks. What a bunch of fucking dicks. This is bullshit. Let me show you the email that I got earlier today. Okay, inauthentic behaviors. Guess I'm gonna have to contact the support team. I'm being called inauthentic. Okay. Okay, so they're going to review it and take further action. Good for them. Okay, but I will get on the I'll get in the mix here and get my account fixed, and I'll be in touch with my supporters with my video. Incredible review, and I will be in touch.